particularly with Deborah Kern tonight, that talked about us, how we have to think about the future generations and the generations after that, and how we want to leave the world for them. And this is certainly on balance. I definitely do acknowledge that we need to look towards those people that have grievances and hardships, but on balance, I want to commend the people that do support the bylaw and are looking after our environment, because they are certainly people, most of them have been at this for a long time, and I know I've certainly got my grandson involved now, who's 13, and hoping that he'll come down the road and want to be part of the Pulling Together program. But through this conversation, I've become very aware that the public does not know what's happening in this region as far as environmental stewardship. Hundreds of Sandwich citizens and volunteers work in our parks, and we've got a lot of big parks, so probably are not making a dent sometimes in what has to be done. But it's incredible. You just look on Sandwich's website and you can see the groups that are out every weekend and pulling out blackberries and broom and whatever it is. The programs that are offered through the CRD and the Hort Center for native plants. And so I think we need to do a bigger education in Sandwich to show what we are doing. I do believe also that there will be an opportunity, in option 2 it talks about providing incentives and those type of things, biodiversity fund, and I think about again that there are organizations that have the ability to share plants and the volunteers who share plants amongst themselves. We have a salvage program, and those are the ways that we can help and work together. It's late, so I will stop at that point and pass it on to whichever colleague wishes to speak next.
Thank you, Councillor Bryce.
A motion for support option 2. I think of the 3 options that is the preferred one. I will just simply say that this talk about people having to prove hardship, I think it should be, if somebody wants their property removed and they've got a qualified environmental professional who has signed off on that, but that should be the end of the day. They don't have to make, as far as I'm concerned, any kind of a personal pitch. If a qualified environmental professional deems there are no sensitive ecosystems existing on the property, I think that should seal the deal, but I don't know if that's the way it's going to unfold or not.
Thank you, Councillor Woodland, and then Murdo.
Thank you very much. Thank you again, members of the public, for just sitting and listening to us and our comments. Coming back, I believe I heard, and I believe we all heard loud and clear from members of the public that there was a need for change in the bylaw. And I think different people saw different changes happening. But I believe now when we do go out with a consultant, with an independent review of it, I believe he or they will come back with some new thoughts, new ideas on it, and I hope you'll come out and just be part of the discussion. And coming back to individual homeowners that have expressed hardship, I believe staff have heard us loud and clear too that there needs to be possibly more openness in how we deal with this. And I'm not saying there wasn't before, but I believe they've heard you, they've heard us, and I look forward to moving ahead on it. And whether it was the one that got defeated or this one here, I believe as far as the revision, it would be the same. So I'm pleased that we're moving ahead, and I believe it probably will be unanimous on council's part, and I look forward to that. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Murdo.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I will be supporting this. I think option 2 is the most supportable option of what we've been presented with, and I think it does put us on a path forward to resolving and rectifying the unintended consequences of the bylaw. There will be obviously in developing the terms of reference that will be presented to council, staff will have to be very thoughtful and considerate of how that work effort is going to unfold, because obviously there is going to be a considerable amount of interest and hopefully active participation in what that's going to look like. The consultants will most certainly have the work cut out for them in considering the implications of any changes that are recommended to council with respect to this bylaw. But I am pleased, as the mayor said, it was a little more than a year ago at the Environment and Natural Areas Committee where we heard from a number of concerned citizens with respect to the EDPA, and there was a recommendation made at that time to undertake a consultation process, and we're now, I think, reaching the end of that process. So I'm pleased to be at this end of it, as I'm sure all of you are as well. But I think we have a lot to look forward to in terms of what may come out of the consultants' findings that gets recommended to council. But I guess my final comment would be, as others have done, to express the gratitude for those who are here this evening or this morning with us. And of course to the many people who have been part of this process, not just the several hundred who have shown up to open houses, but the multiple hundreds of people who submitted comments, participated in open houses, and whose feedback, suggestions, and concerns will be considered as part of this process, in spite of that analysis not having been completed at this point. I want to assure everybody that it is important to us as decision makers, and will be considered as part of as our next steps.
Councillor Platt.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Question for you to staff on clarification on option 2 regarding the bullet point that says have a review panel of experts that could provide advice, feedback, etc. akin to the ADP. My question is, would this panel be the ones who would help council make the decisions on removal from EDPA, or is this a group that would help design the new bylaw?
The thought of staff was that was potentially one of the solutions for the long-term implementation of this bylaw.
Okay. Then I'm going to suggest an amendment to this, because I believe that what we want is to take this out of the hands of staff right now because of the controversy that's around that. And so the amendment I'm going to propose is just to the option 2, is immediately begin to devise and populate a panel of experts that could provide advice to council on individual, so that they could help us with the ones that are going to come forward in the coming days. If there's a seconder, I'll explain. Thank you. Then I will just simply indicate that I am in favor of option 2. I think that the way forward is through this. I think the panel of experts would have been useful to us now, as opposed to in 2 months. I'm not a huge fan of how the bylaw has been applied, but I appreciate that we need something like this. It's unfortunate that we're talking about this at 12:30 at night, because my thoughts are not as cohesive as I'd like them to be. I doubt anyone's are. That being said, I hope that this comes back. I think it does say in there by the end of, does it have, sorry, this is the problem with late night. Is this going to come back to us, Mr. Mayor, through you to staff before the end of April?
The motion that you have is that the draft terms of reference would be brought back to council by the end of April.
And that includes the hiring of the consultants that will come to council for approval.
The terms of reference would need to be set, and then we would go forward with the hiring process, yes.
Okay, and just for the clarity of our audience, council will be selecting the consultants.
Correct.
Thank you.
everyone's had a chance to speak, so I guess I'll speak last. I'm really not in favor of this, but I feel compelled to support it because it's a way forward. While the vote would go ahead anyway without my vote, I believe at this stage, I'm very disappointed. We have a lot to be proud of in our municipality, but I don't think we have a lot to be proud of in this particular bylaw in its current state. It is not a good bylaw. It is not a reasonable bylaw. And a year is a long time. I would not say so much that we have been dragging our feet. There's been a lot of effort that's been put in to the open houses and to these town halls and to listen to the folks, and certainly a lot of effort has gone in behind the scenes, responding to emails and dealing with residents. But I'm starting to feel like this is dragging our feet, and I wonder how long it's going to go on for. It seems to go on and on and on. The idea, to me, that exempting single-family homes is going to cause Saanich to fall apart is ludicrous. Why the bylaw cannot be crafted, recrafted, prepared to make sense, and those homes or regions of Saanich put in when we have good science and practice behind it is not only entirely possible. I think that's the ultimate result of this. It is a hardship that really is hard to experience. And one of our jobs, I think, as elected representatives, is to tap into the empathy in ourselves, to understand what is happening in our community. And if this was happening to me, I'd definitely be in the audience, and I'd be burning over this. And to go home tonight, we're not being left empty-handed here, but this is our responsibility. It is not the responsibility of the residents to fix this. We've heard from the residents, we've heard from homeowners, we've heard from taxpayers. It is now our job to fix this, and it's the challenge of this council, I think, maybe of this term. I hope nothing more complicated comes forward. But in the way that we approach problem resolution at the moment doesn't give me a lot of confidence that when the next problem comes along, we're going to be doing it in a timely manner. This is not timely, and it's disappointing as mayor. I have high level of respect for the process and for my colleagues. Certainly many of them have a long-term view of this community, and that is highly commendable. And I'm educated here every single day on this job by my experiences and by their words and by their actions. And I'm grateful to be in this position and to be learning and growing as a person in this role. But I fundamentally believe that it is our job as elected officials to listen and to act, and we spend a lot of time listening and acting very slowly. And I do hope this is the last time we take so long to address a problem like this, even though it is a very large problem. We really need to get moving on solutions and to spend less time justifying why we're here. So with that, I'll call the question. All in favor? Opposed? Not opposed, that motion carries unanimously. Are there any further motions? Councillor Haynes.
So, as elected officials, we should be responsible in governance and responsive. So, having heard the last two town halls in tonight's meeting, and somebody's on the table, I would like to make a motion that when a resident comes forward with an appeal on their EDPA designation through exemption clause 14, that the cost of their registered professional biologist is covered by the Ministry of Saanich up to the level of $10,000. Yeah, per applicant. Because If there's a seconder, I'll speak to it.
I want to thank you all for being here tonight, into the wee hours. Another motion? Councillor Plank, go ahead.
Sorry, Mr. Mayor, I wasn't sure what the process was going to be. I'd like to move that staff be directed, or through the CAO to direct staff to create a one-page document explaining the steps for the public to come forward as a result of the decision we've made tonight for them to have their properties removed and have consideration made for those experiencing hardship. So just so we're clarifying. So I'm not trying to rewrite the bylaw. I just think we've said several times tonight that there will be a process where people can come forward. So I'm wondering if staff can create that and get it on the website and get it out and publicized so people know what they can do if they want to move forward. And this is, to me, the little bit of the attempt at always looking for a compromise. Whereas we didn't exempt everyone, this is the opportunity for those who are experiencing hardship to seek some remedy now.
Any further discussion? So now I'll call the question. All in favor? I'm counting hands here. Is it unanimous? All against? I don't think anyone's against. Councillor, I'm going to recount that. All in favor? Against? Okay, that motion passes unanimously. Thank you. It's a little hard to count when going back and forth. And I'll look for a motion to adjourn the meeting at 12:39. Moving second, call the question. All in favor? Opposed? None opposed? That motion is carried. All right. Thank you all.